Welcome back to Recap It. Today we are going to recap a 1990 romantic comedy movie titled Pretty Woman. Edward, a wealthy businessman, hires Vivian, a prostitute, to accompany him to a few gatherings. When he falls in love with her and they try to bridge the gap between their worlds, trouble ensues. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to this channel. Now without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? Edward Lewis is a high-powered corporate raider based in New York who buys and dismantles struggling businesses, then sells the assets for a profit. He wants his girlfriend to accompany him on a business trip, but she becomes tired of being his beck-and-call girl and breaks up with him. This all happens at his partner Philip Stuckey's posh party, where he decides to let loose in Stuckey's Lotus. He gets lost and ends up on Hollywood Boulevard, in the heart of the city's red light district. Vivian Ward, a prostitute, is there when Harry arrives. Hooker Vivian Ward gives him directions. She charges him and then enters. He pays Vivian to drive him to the Regent Beverly Wilshire Hotel because he is having trouble driving a manual transmission automobile. Edward then hires her for the night on the spur of the moment. He invites her up to his penthouse room on the spur of the moment and pays her to stay the night, despite his initial discomfort. Despite some awkwardness, he finds her charming and gets along well with her. He wants Vivian to play his girlfriend during a series of business gatherings he'll be attending while seeking to take over shipbuilder James Morse's company the next day. Edward offers Vivian $3,000 for 6 days, as well as clothing money, and demands that she be at his beck and call with no attachments attached. Vivian enthusiastically accepts. She goes shopping on Rodeo Drive for more acceptable clothes after calling her roommate Kit to give her money for the rent. When she tries to shop on Rodeo Drive, a snobbish saleswoman refuses to serve her because she is still dressed like a hooker, so she returns to the hotel, where she is stopped by Barney, the hotel manager. He wants to be clear that having her at the hotel is an exception because Edward is such a special guest. Vivian is worried since she still doesn't have an attire for dinner, so Barney helps her out by coaching her on proper dining etiquette. When Edward returns, he is taken aback by Vivian's metamorphosis and opens up to her about his personal and professional life, particularly his tumultuous connection with his late father. The next day, Vivian tells Edward about her shopping adventure the day before, and he takes her back to spend an insane amount of money on clothes before returning to his work, transforming her from hooker to lady. She returns to the shop from the day before to show them their huge blunder. She appears to be a genuine visitor at the hotel, but when Edward returns home, he is still working, so they take a bath together and talk late into the night about their pasts and how they ended up where they are now. Edward brings Vivian to the polo the next day. Philip is concerned that Vivian is a corporate spy while she speaks with David Morse, the grandson of the man engaged in Edward's newest deal. Edward assuages his fears by explaining how they met and that she is a hooker. Philip approaches Vivian later at the event. She is furious with Edward for telling him and wants to leave when they return to the hotel, but he persuades her to stay for the week. The next day, Edward leaves work early and brings Vivian to the San Francisco Opera to watch La Traviata. Vivian is moved by the story of a prostitute who falls in love with a wealthy man. "If I fail to tell you later, I had a lovely time tonight," she says, evidently moved by the music. He falls asleep while she is getting ready for bed when they return to the hotel. Vivian kisses him on the lips, something she never does with clients, and they make love as partners rather than client and hooker. Vivian confesses her love for Edward after incorrectly believing he was sleeping. Edward's return to New York is imminent, so over breakfast, he offers to assist Vivian in getting off the streets, suggesting that she be placed in a luxury condo and given an allowance, with Edward vowing to see her on a regular basis. So he can keep meeting her, but she feels humiliated since Edward continues to treat her like a prostitute, and she declares that this is not the fairy tale she desires. He then goes back to work without dealing with the problem. Kit arrives at the hotel and notices that she has developed feelings for him, but she denies it. When Edward meets Morse, he is about to clinch the deal when he changes his mind. His time with Vivian has opened his eyes to a new way of life. He prefers to create rather than simply make money. Instead of dissolving his company, he chooses to work with Morse to salvage it. Philip is outraged that Edward's new course has cost him a fortune, and he storms off to the hotel. Vivian is present, and he accuses her of altering Edward's personality. He tries to rape her and then strikes her, but Edward arrives just in time to stop him. Edward then dismisses him. Edward begs Vivian to stay with him one more night once his business in LA is completed, but only because she wants to, not because he will pay. She declines and walks away. Vivian is next seen at home with Kit, packing her belongings in preparation for her trip to San Francisco. While being transported to the airport, Edward reconsiders his life and has the chauffeur take a detour to Vivian's apartment complex. He jumps through the sunroof of the white limousine and up the fire escape to kiss Vivian, conquering his fear of heights and achieving her fairy tale dream metaphorically. And this is where the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.